And I was growing up in Greeley, Colorado, which is like 70 miles northeast of Denver. And the biggest thing going then in the late 80s were the Denver Broncos. So I kind of got my mind
Right.
on coaching at a very young age. And then once I got into playing high school specifically in college, I felt as though there was a lot of answers to the game of football that I was finding on my own.
So let's start here. I'm always I want to kind of understand. I'm always fascinated to learn from coaches their journey right into coaching, and just for folks. I mean, obviously, I'm pretty familiar with your journey, but what made you want to become a
The
coach?
so I always had a drive to be. I was very afraid. I had a strong fear, a visceral fear from like when I was single digits, pre kindergarten, to be something. I didn't want to be. Um, I wanted to be memorable in some way, shape, or form. I wanted to impact something. I wanted to be successful, and I think early on in my life, I kind of recognized that the idea to be a professional athlete. I think on my little league team, I was the second best player on the little league team, so I did the math. And in Greeley, Colorado, if I extrapolate that, the percentages are low. So, um, and I was growing up in Greeley, Colorado, which is like 70 miles northeast of Denver, and the biggest thing going then in the late 80s were the Denver Broncos. So I kind of got my mind
Right.
on coaching at a very young age, and then once I got into playing high school specifically in college, I felt as though there was a lot of answers to the game of football that I was finding on my own. So I was assessing
Wow. Yeah.
kind of my small scope, um, and I thought, you know what? Uh, I have a chance to be great at in this field because one, if you compete against what you're perceived like, I was yearning for that impact in my life, and I didn't have it. I thought particularly, and it might have been because I wasn't that talented, so the coaches didn't waste their time with me. But I also recognized that what made sense to me was if I was going to be great at something, I would have to be passionate about it because I wasn't.
Wow. At a
Yeah,
young
because
age,
I
you
could.
knew
There
that.
was this conflict that I was going through where my mom was building me up to be great, and I kind of got addicted to that. She was like, "You're the best all the time," and that felt good. Um, but then I
Sure.
recognized there was like an inherent I'm not sure if it's laziness or like I I enjoyed not doing things as well. So then you're really ambitious, but then like you kind of like are
Interesting.
cool. TV is awesome. You know,
Yeah.
so then
Sure.
the what made sense to me was I wasn't gonna just work because I'm a worker. There had to be something
Right.
bigger than that. So
Right.
I
Right. Right. Right.
it just made sense naturally to find my passion, and really my entire adolescence, I would say, my passion was football, with exception to my sixth grade year, where I was, I don't know, let's call it six months to a year. I was telling people I'd be an architect. I don't know why, but I used to like to draw like floor plans of houses and stuff. So, but then that
Okay.
faded,
So that
and then
was yeah. And
it
football
did.
always stayed. Now, what I mean, the NFL. I mean, there's the college level, there's the high school level. What was it always relative to the draw to the NFL?
Um, because that's I perceive that as being the best, and I went.
Got it.
Um, take you back to third, yeah, third grade. Okay, We were in. I remember this vividly. This was like a game changing moment in my life, and it was in third grade. See
Well
what I did there?
done. Nice tie in there,
So
man. Yeah, well done.
we have like a multiplication test that's 100. Like 6 times 8 is whatever. 100 of those in I think whatever the allotted amount of time was, and I wanted to win that in my class, but I knew
Right.
that this girl who was like a head taller than me, her name was Stephanie Call. I knew she was better at math than
Okay.
me. That was my arch nemesis when it came to math. So, but I really wanted to win this test, so I was like, no, I'm winning this test, and I just kept telling myself that.
Right.
And then
Okay. Was she hot though? Like, was there any other kind of undercurrent
no,
of going
no,
on?
I
Were
mean
you
I
digging
didn't
her?
treat her. I
Got
didn't
it.
even treat her as a
Okay.
human being. She was an opponent.
Right, because you
No,
wanted to crush her.
no,
Right.
I wouldn't. You know, when you're a young man, as a young man, girls that made me feel less of a man, I didn't find attractive.
Right.
Now, like it's cool
Right.
if someone taller than me, if anyone taller than me finds me attractive, then I'm like I'm the man. I must be deserving of that
Yeah.
because of my human being. Because it's definitely not my stature. But
Right.
the so Stephanie Call. Bottom line was, I ended up winning that whole competition. Got done fastest and had the most accurate test. And I remember thinking to myself as a third grader, I was like, "Wow, I can will myself to beating people in a competitive fashion simply by fully convincing myself that I'm going to." And why don't other people do that? So then over time
Sure.
you start to notice that oh, it's because people don't like that extended vulnerability with the
Right.
fear of failure, which I just
Sure.
decided, you know what, I don't want to. I want no business with anything other than really going after to be the best at something. So the if I just make myself completely vulnerable and aspire whatever, the only reason not to is, failing. So then just become the
Right.
best at dealing with failing. Then you can have then you can have
Right.
blind aggression towards things, and be able to, will yourself to certain levels of success, simply by understanding that most people aren't willing to go there. So
Yeah.
that's why I got into football, and it was
That
100% driven to be great at something, and then along the way, the amount of satisfaction that came with, as a player, I wasn't that good. I did play in college, but I used play loosely, and so I was coaching at the time too, and
okay.
there was a natural. I felt like a it was very natural to me to explain whys, connect reasons, and then my overall life philosophy would help when I was doing that. So it became a natural fit. But it's been something that this is definitely not just new to me that I tried on. It kind of found me early
Sure.
and stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In third grade.
Third grade was the biggest
Right. At some level.
game changer. But I was always kind of a it was. I'm not sure where that comes from. I didn't. Now I'm 40 now. In my mid to late 30s, I started like considering, well, maybe, you start reflecting. You're like, okay, where is this, where's this
Yeah, where'd this
obsessive
come from?
compulsive desire to be great? Well, I grew up with, I was an only child with a single mom, and my dad, uh, past the age of 3, I didn't really see. So in my late 30s, I've been like, well, maybe that was my coping mechanism to be relevant and worthwhile enough to pay attention to. I don't know.
Do you think that? Do you think
Well,
that
that's
was?
you know, I think my buddy Socrates was quoted as saying, "The only thing I know is that I know nothing." I don't know if it was, but it kind of makes sense, you know. But I really hadn't
Sure,
thought about
sure.
why am I so driven um, until people started commenting that I was driven, which kind of happened in my 30s.
Do you feel like that was a drive? I mean, now you are obviously a head coach. I always think that it's about the drive. Sometimes people think it's the drive to achieve and get to a place versus sort of this desire to stack one great day on top of another and then the outcome will be there. And I heard you sort of talk about that when you sort of said, you know what, I'm going to let go of trying to be a head coach. I'm going to be great right where I am. And that was when this all sort of started to roll. How much did that shift your mindset when you sort of went to that place and then get you to where you are now?
Well, that January 4th, 2016. So
Wow.
that was the day that I was in Atlanta, and we'd been there for 1 year, and the receiver coach who was coaching Julio Jones, who's one of the best receivers of all time. I actually read something that I think he's the second highest earner in all of professional sports, or all National Football League wide receivers. He's made the second most money ever. He's one of the best ones. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Well, he was on the team, and the receiver coach was leaving to be an offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. And I had assisted him all year, and I was a position assistant, and I had been a receiver coach in the past with the Washington team. So I was really excited for the possibility of coaching Julio Jones and the wide receivers, and I got called into the head coach's office, and to not get offered the job, but to talk about my drinking problem. So I had been, that's a whole nother story, but I had been coping with a lot of life's shortcomings by not coping with them and distracting myself and drinking alcohol. But so this moment where it's like, okay, this is going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity, it slips through my fingertips. Now, that was, thankfully Dan Quinn decided to keep me on, and instead wanted to use two existing coaches who weren't familiar with the receiver position like I was, and one to be the head guy and one to be the assistant guy. And so I get all this news on January 4th. I go home, tell my wife that no, it's actually the way opposite news. She's from California. She's moved across the country, and I've really undercut my career. So that I said at that moment, okay, how do I make this better? This is like one of those, everybody has them, but those moments that you just get hit in the gut and everything's different, and you're like, whoa. So I hated
Right.
that I
What
did
just
that to
happened?
myself, because I'm also looking at my 5-year-old self like, how'd you let yourself down? A lot of stuff. So right then and there, I was like, okay, how do I make this better? On that day, I was like, um, I need to make this into the best thing that's ever happened to me. What is that going to be?
Wow, cool.
Okay, well, you know what? I have the visual of my wife's face. I'm never going to do that to her again. And um, I'm going to do what most people couldn't. And I'm just not going to drink again. I'm going sober today. And
Wow, that's awesome.
that, that ignited kind of a pattern, a change in me where it was like recognizing, um, I don't know, turning something that appears to be adverse and doing something about it, um, puts you in the driver's seat. And
Yeah.
it was, I was like, I was so determined. I knew I was going to do it. And I was like, so then people won't, like, if they can't talk about me drinking, then what else
Right.
can be wrong with me? And then it went to the job. Well, I was kept on staff, but I was asked to train the two people that were going to be assuming the responsibilities that I'd so hoped and desired. Asked me to train them because I was the most knowledgeable. So I said absolutely,
Sure.
and and it was the idea that most people wouldn't share all of that information that would and do right by those individuals, at with the under the guise of protecting their own,
Right.
um, and
Possibility.
that let me know that it was the right thing to do. That okay, that's the only thing that would keep me from doing that. Otherwise, um, that I should share information, considering information did not just get downloaded into my brain. Someone had to share it to me. Let me pay it back and immerse myself in that process. Well, that year we went to the Super Bowl. We lost it. Then I got a promotion right after that year, and went to San Francisco, and that was like 7 years ago. But everything started happening in my career right after I let go of my career and just immersed myself right into doing what's right, um, and
Yeah.
being my best self because it's hard not to. There's a lot of things that can distract people from, any given course, that really does damage to that course. And
Sure.
I stopped looking at that. And then I was also introduced to some really cool ideas, through Dan Quinn and, the organization and the culture that he had there. And there was, this idea. He had outsourced a company called Vision Pursue, and they had this A A to B thinking, and their analogy was, okay, so many people say I'm here in A, but I'll be happy when I get to B, whatever that thing is. That's where I'm going to be
Yep. Whatever
happy.
B is. Yep.
And then you obsess
Yep.
about A, obsess about A, obsess about A. Then if things other than that are outside of your control allow you to get to B, you get to B, and now there's a C, and then you're in this rat
Right.
race
Totally.
of always
Sure.
trying to chase fulfillment. Whereas they propose a a different stance on it, where it's about building up A so that A eventually includes where B is. So
Yep.
involve
Yep.
so you build
Yep.
up A, and all of a sudden B finds you. That idea it was seed planted simultaneously when I was going through all this stuff. So as fate had it, um, it really changed how I did everything. I got into the NFL. I was the youngest coach in the NFL when I got in, right after college. So I was 22. And then when I was 23,
Unbelievable.
I was hired by the Houston Texans in the NFL, and I was an offensive assistant. And the position coach I was paired with that I worked under was Kyle Shanahan, who was the youngest position coach in the league at 26. And from that moment on, I was chasing him. He was the youngest coordinator at 28.
Yeah.
Then I worked with a couple other young head coaches, Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay, and I was in competition with them. And then finally, catastrophe arose, or self-perceived catastrophe, that forced me to change how kind of I really thought about everything.
When you got fired from
That was
Houston, is that what you're
that
suggesting?
one just made me a really really on time worker because I got fired in Houston once. That was a big monumental shift, and then in Atlanta
Yeah.
there was the drinking thing that kind of just focused my energy. But like
Sure. Right.
I got into NFL really young, and I was kind of finding myself, I think, and doing a good job, and but
Yeah.
working hard, but also playing hard. And I came into work late a couple times. And then that on top of, um, my boss kind of perceiving me as partying a little too much. He let me go, and then from then on, that my work, it was 865 days. I was out of the NFL from that 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 life
That moment.
catastrophe A, not B, in Atlanta, and then
Right. Right.
so
Right.
those days um, were hard, but I thought during them, I actually thought real time when I was out of the NFL that it would be very important for me to not run from those feelings, but to like really, really, I don't know, cry and be sad a lot, so that when I did get back in the NFL, I would have a competitive advantage dealing with like a 3-game losing streak. So then once I got back into the
Sure.
NFL, I kind of morphed into the first guy at the office, um, and took care of that part of it. So,
Sure.
and and then just didn't take care of the alcohol part.
But ultimately, I'm hearing you say, I mean, obviously the Houston's moment, the drinking issue that you navigated, obviously, unbelievably at some level and abruptly because of your vision and purpose to where you were going. These things made you better as a coach. Tell me more about how they made you a better coach, because it feels like it did. I mean, you're showing up
Yeah.
early, you're doing all
No,
the
I
things that you
think
need to do.
perspective is very important. I think there's a gift underneath everything that again I talk about you perceive, but like something bad happens, and there's also how many times does it take you to look in your past and like be like, wow, in reflection I thought that was terrible, but it wasn't so bad because of this. That pattern
Right, right.
um, happens a ton. Um, and at some point in time, for me at least, I was like, well, I should stop being so judgy on things when they happen. Um, and I think that in itself, the idea that failure could be the best thing is about as coaching as you can get. Because,
Yeah, right.
coaching inherently can be negative. You are correcting someone who wants to do it right. You know, just
Right.
like I wanted to do
Sure.
stuff right,
Sure.
like, but by being able to shift people's mind away from like by shifting people's mind towards enacting something and using that. I mean, that direct correlation that manifests itself in every coaching
Sure.
point because you're constantly saying, okay, this is what we're going to take, and I'm going to explain to you why it wasn't good enough, but how this is the learning lesson you need to do it good enough. Because
Better.
I mean, more
Right.
often than not, that's the biggest thing that you're breaking down when you're coaching people is like understanding the inherent, like they want to do well. Everybody wants to do well. Like, you think someone doesn't want to catch a pass? No, I didn't want to
Right.
catch it.
Right.
So that it's, and then they've already failed, or you're explaining to them that it wasn't what you want. So really, I think my life's journey is inherent in coaching in general, and I think it helps me understand people where they're at and what it feels like, empathy. Um, Even
Sure.
though I have,
Sure.
go
What
ahead,
do you
sorry.
think? What's your leadership style or your leadership philosophy at some level now?
Um, I think that I think um, leadership starts with you're serving others to get the best out of them. That service um, is monumental in it. Um, I think a lot of people you lose sight of the fact that if you're a boss, your one and only job is to maximize those who are your subordinates. I guess. Um, so I see myself in the service industry for sure. I think and a lot of times people get the misconception that you have to be infallible as a boss. And I would say that's it's quite the contrary. I think um, as a leader, people respond to human elements. So and irony's full in our world, but like ironically, some of the strongest things that you can do is make yourself vulnerable. Um,
Yeah.
so my leadership style, it's one to serve people through connection, um, and I think I never stray from the idea that my one and only job is to really maximize each and every person that I'm in charge of. I think oh, pretty abstract right now.
Yeah.
So
You're pulling out that
oh, you think
undergrad
so?
degree right now, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I heard you're kind of smart
Nah,
guy, right?
I'm
They'll bet.
I'm good. I mean, I'm good at convincing others I may be smart.
So, you talked about McVay, you talked about LaFleur, you talked about, some of these guys that you sort of came up with at some level who got big opportunities early, as well. Do you think was that always your B at some level to your analogy and to what we talk about, right? Relevant to vision pursuit. Was that it? Was that the B and then you were living in A? Did that cause you to put more pressure
Yeah, I
on
mean,
yourself?
my first resume that I handed Mike Shanahan when I was a month out of graduation of college. The top line said like something to the effect of be a Hall of Fame NFL head coach that brings a franchise multiple Super Bowls. So yeah, that was a B, sort of. I guess that
Right.
was like the beginning. That was B, but the C is that line. So it was always in my vision. And it, yeah, I think it got me focused on the wrong stuff because so much of that is out of my control. So much of it, it really makes you take a step back and kind of like when I was forced to just focus on what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, and just I was happy to be with the Atlanta Falcons, and immerse myself into that. Well, I was worried about my job, and I was worried about getting everything out of my job. When you're worried about, the next step, there's so much involved that has nothing to do with you. So then you extrapolate all those things, and that's where the anxiety for me came because you're spread thin and you can't do anything about it. So as you're not the actor in the situation, whereas just doing literally, and I'm extremist in this way, where I just like I stopped drinking alcohol. When I say that I just immersed myself in my job, it's the only thing I cared about, and I didn't even worry about it. And
Wow.
and it's liberating, is what it is.
I bet it is. I mean, I can only. How do you marry ambition, drive, and your desire from such a young age to end up at this point, but then park it and get after it every day in the world that you're in now? I mean, how do you marry those things? Because at some level, right, if I'm listening, those feel like those could be in contrast with one another significantly. How do you think about that? Because I think we live in a world where, yes, there's a lot of people that are not trying to get and stack one great day on top of another, but there's a lot of people, right, that to your point, they're only focused on B, and you and I both know you get to B and you're underwhelmed, right? So how do those work together?
So it's
in your mind?
one of the first things that I did with the team, and there's a little emoji that I show before every team meeting, and I'm pretty proud of it because it's a little play on words, but it hit me like the Sunday before my first team meeting, which was April 4th of 2022, right? So I guess it would be April 3rd. And it was like the best present that you can give to yourself and everyone around you is your presence. And it was a present emoji.
Yeah.
So I have that every day.
Cool.
But when the light bulb goes on, that the cheat code is none other than controlling your own controllables, and then you have all these ambitions, but the only way to get there is to be good at your job. There's this idea of being present in the moment, and that you're completely immersed into the moment and those around you, and that really dissipates all the chatter. And mind you, it's never been so real than right now. How many people are spending how many hours on a screen? How many people are looking at social media? Well, inherent in social media is looking at the past. Every picture you look at is past, and you're idealizing whatever. And then you worry about the future. Where am I going? But the vessel that gets you anything is right in front of you. Then that idea, unlocking, being present, and then what that can do for people. I started noticing how, I'm not good with the phone at all. Like I don't keep in touch with people at all. A notorious worst person ever, because I'm so extreme. I'm always present, right? But I've always had good relationships,
Right.
starting in high school, where I'd go back and forth from Denver to Connecticut from home. I'd always have good relationships with people, and naturally, my way to kind of have humor and get along with people is I listen to what they say, which I started to realize that's being present. And now, with people all over the place and so vulnerable to thinking about all things that they can't control, that the amount of rent paid to things that are either past or future, none of which exist. Like you can use the past,
Right.
you can use the past, and it did happen, but it's not there. The future is whatever it is. You have no idea. Everything is about right now, and then all of that ambition goes into that. When you're like, oh, okay, well, I want to be great, or I want to be the head coach in the National Football League. There's only 32 of them. How do you do that? I spent zero time worrying about that. I got called to have an interview with the Miami Dolphins. That was my first head coaching interview. I was not stressing that I was going to get a head coaching interview. And then,
That's amazing.
but then I came here and I said 100%, there's no way I'm not getting the job.
When you were locked in and when you
just
were
because
there,
that's my best vessel to get the job. But I know,
right, sure,
factually, like usually, like interviewers in the NFL, usually your name you get known by interviewing, and then next season, the next class, you have a chance. But like, just know, I know, having that, playing it safe by lowering my expectations minimizes the maximum ability that I have in that interview. So I just came here and did, my whole life's dream, 100% getting the job. Will be heartbroken if I don't get it. But I've learned over in life, I've been heartbroken before, and every single time immersing myself into that, I've come out a better version of myself. So stop being fearful and just go for it is what kind of my mantra was. And I went big from Stephanie Call on. We're great.
Yeah. You said it. I mean, 32 jobs. To get them, you got to differentiate yourself, no question. What makes you so good? How do you people who aren't watching this can't see your facial expression in that moment. But how have you differentiated yourself, right?
I would say,
I mean, beyond the strapping build, and do you know what I mean? I mean, beyond all of that.
Beyond all the superficialities that gave me such a leg up. I don't think I'm anything but my daily's output. So I differentiate myself because I don't feel entitled that I am the best, or I'm going to be the best today and I'm going to earn it, and if I'm not, I shouldn't have this job. I think because you get that satisfaction of accomplishment when you earn stuff, and realistically, like, what's been satisfying that wasn't earned? I think a lot of times people fall victim to some sort of entitlement. Like, I'm not entitled. I'm not better than because of yesterday or whatever. Tomorrow I have a team meeting. We have a practice. and I'm going to make certain that I deserve to be their head coach, all the players and the Miami Dolphins organization and the fan base, because tomorrow I will be the best person for the job by my actions that are 100% all in, and immersed with the right intentions and that. So
Sure.
I think there's certain pressures that come with this job, and it's very very seen, and sometimes people, a self-defense mechanism is, oh yeah, I'm different for this, that, or reason. The only way that I will ever be different is because that I understand that I'm not a gift, or I'm not better than, or
Right.
the humility to it
Yeah, that's huge.
allows
No
you to just
question.
be free and earn it every day, which is really what you want, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you're very intentional about what you do, right? You rearranged the locker room so it's not
You've
based on
done your
position
research.
groups. Hey, I
This
mean, you got to
this isn't a
prepare,
hobby for
Mike.
you, apparently.
It's hobby, and I prepare for my
Oh.
hobbies too, man. Are there any examples of tactical things that you've done as a leader to help strengthen the team culture? It's sort of similar to that relative to your level of intentionality.
Yeah,
Is
yeah. I
there
mean,
quite a
it's just
list?
it's where to what's the best one. I think I try to have reason with everything um, I do, and one of the things that, from a football standpoint, uh, I try to generate um, I try to generate successes and failures. Um, I try to uh, I try to generate, all the things that happen in an NFL season, which seem like they're manageable now, but when you're in the moment, you work day and night for a week as a coach or a player, and then you fail, and you do that multiple times in a row. It can seem like the world is ending. Um, I try to I try to be intentional by pointing out literally everything that that's analogous to what they're about to foresee, and I try to make sure that there's um, adversity um, within every practice and within a camp, and then bring light to that
Yeah.
adversity. That way, guys, I try to have, as best I can, all those life lessons that I've had. Um, give those gifts to the team through analogous situations. You know, I
In
yeah,
preparation
and
for game
and,
day.
and it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's you know what's funny about the way I view, this, it's a, it's an infallible job. It's inherently infallible. Like, you're never going to. It's like a baseball player. Your batting average is 300. That means you're awesome
Yeah.
if you
Right.
70% of the
You go to
time,
the Hall of
right?
Fame.
Um,
Yeah.
and I
Totally.
feel like is everything, all the decisions that I have to make. There's a long list of them, but if I have a reason why, besides, yeah, a reason why that I attach with thought. It doesn't have to be right
Yeah.
every time, but just having
Hmm.
an intentionality with everything that you do, even if you're wrong, your batting average will be way higher,
Yeah.
because it's pervasive in the world, is like people copying people. Okay, well, it
Yeah.
looked this
No
way.
question.
Well, you know, I there's a certain advantage that comes with not having a dad around and being abnormally ambitious. Well, I've never followed any sort of pattern, so I think that's kind of the reason why people say that I'm different. It's because I'm really not patterning myself after anybody. I'm taking stuff from people, but I'm just trying to really adhere to being the best version that I can be, and I'm comfortable with that. And I think
Yeah.
that
That's
uh, that manifests itself all over the things that we do.
yeah. What outside of the X's and O's, what are the things you look for with hiring your staff? I mean, who are you wanting to be surrounded
Um,
by
I
at some level?
I want the first and foremost, you know, coaching, and I say it to the players and the coaches all the time, like professional athletes in general, they have a window to earn that's here. They have all the
Yes.
preparation up until this window, and then after they're done playing, they're living and reflecting on that. So it's an incredible job
Sure, no
to
question.
be a coach for that important part of their life. So coaches have to understand the gravity of that, and um, they have to be motivated to um, really inspire and help people fulfill their dreams. So
Yeah,
there has to be
yeah,
a
sure.
motivation of service, I would say. There has to be
Yeah,
um, the ability to connect with human beings, and
no
they have
question.
to have the right
How,
intent.
no question. And how do you connect with guys that are hard to connect with at some level, right? I mean, they don't trust generally because it is, to your point, it is a sliver of time that they have to live into a dream that they've had forever and to make, by the way, an enormous amount of money, potentially in a very short period of time that most people make in a lifetime. So your ability to connect with them, to take them where they want to go is huge. How do you do
Um,
that?
I think one thing that it's tricky because there's not enough time of the day to directly connect with every human being on the football team. That's one challenge on the onset, the amount of people, and then all the things that you're
Yeah.
speaking about. So one thing that I've always done that I think is incredibly important is I've really just in a group setting, for instance, I spill the beans on everything, just kind of like I'm doing now. I'll just
Right.
I
Wow.
because I can't invest in them by way of keeping up with what they're doing next week or what um, where their parents live or
Right. Their
all those
birthday.
things. So
Sure.
I can make it personal between each individual, and I have to do it in a group setting generally, but I
Right.
can give them myself, and that extension of vulnerability um, creates relationships, and
Yeah.
that you start to break down those barriers. That's one thing, and then empathy is incredibly important. I think that's there's a along the way for me to achieve things to match my ambition with where I was at. Um, I figured out ways to you know in high school I was kind of a considered a popular kid. Then I went to college and no one cared, and I didn't come from money, so it, and it was a totally different socioeconomic background there. Um, but in that process, I got well versed at dealing with different types of people, And I really always had a bigger, my whole life I was chasing that stuff my mom was telling me from like the second I have conscious memory that I was great or whatever. I was chasing that, um, and I was just like a random guy that was undersized, had small bones. So you got to figure out,
Yeah.
um, and
How to connect.
and really empathy and is the biggest one. I'm not sure if that's just get. I don't know where that comes from, but like, I mean, tell me a story about anyone, and if it's sad, I'll probably cry on the spot.
But but it's cool because you show up the way you are. You're not trying to. I mean, I love that, right? And no question that drives connection with your guys, your
No,
staff, all of it. But a lot of people don't feel
no,
safe
people
doing
really
that.
recognize it and they
But it's,
respect it, even if
I bet.
even if they don't like you that much. Generally,
Yeah. You don't see it. Well, you don't see a lot of NFL football coaches
oh,
crying.
I have no
Right? You
problem.
know what I mean? But I know. I love it. I love it. I know. I was
I'm
kind of
crying right
hoping I
now.
could get you to cry today somehow, man. Okay, good, good. Thank you for that. That's good. How you're a coach, which I love. You want to
Hmm.
build your guys up instead of tearing them down. That's your approach. How how do you build confidence in your guys? I mean, beyond the obvious, what are some of the things that you do? I mean, obviously, lifting people up helps build their confidence. How else do you
Bringing
do that?
attention to focusing the most attention on the successes, and especially when they're warranted. Um, I think you know recognizing what the competition was in terms of trying to be kind of like introspective and thinking how I could be great. You along the way, you just along my journey, I've just noticed that more often than not, almost all people have certain levels of fear, insecurity. No one likes to be sad. Everyone likes to be happy. Natural things, uh, and I know that I wouldn't have even attempted to, the analogy since I brought the story up. I wouldn't even attempted that to to compete with Stephanie Call had my mom not told me that I was capable of everything. So
Yeah.
that's inherent in my DNA, or just it's inherent in me that where would I be in life if I didn't boldly boldly allow myself to think that I could achieve stuff, um, and understanding that each and every player that I ever coach, there's a level of fear that I'm breaking down, and
Yeah.
then
Sure.
um, I don't know. I really every player or person that I work with, I I definitely try to make sure that they're not falling short of a ceiling of expectations or raising their ceiling of expectations for themselves, because it doesn't matter if you
Sure.
what arbitrary goal you ever set. um, the more aggressive it is, the that gives you the highest capability of being your best self. So even if I fall short, like even if I failed
Right.
the Miami Dolphin head coaching interview, I was still an offensive coordinator for the San
Right.
Francisco 49ers.
Right.
Like
Right. Right. Right.
you,
Yeah.
well, I
That's not
mean,
bad.
inherently, I think you have to understand that the fear of failure only holds you back, and it
No question.
life goes on with everything. So don't let that occupy space in your brain, because it's keeping you from being the best version of yourself. Even if you're still going to fail at whatever you're doing, you'll still be the best
Right,
version
right,
because you went
sure,
for it, as opposed to, I'll kind of try.
right,
But,
right.
it's,
Well, failure's feedback. It's
yeah,
just
no,
feedback, right? I mean, at some
the,
level.
what I tell the players is something that they can easily attach themselves to. They've played football for a long time, so I ask them if they've ever had a perfect game, and they say invariably no. So I said, okay,
Right.
if inherent in each time you play your sport, there's going to be something that you could have done better. If that is to be true, then it's not if failure is going to occur, but it's when. So the real competition is who can turn adversity into an opportunity the fastest. Henceforth, Michael Jordan's a great one to use. Everybody knows Michael Jordan's greatness. One of the things that everyone always admits is that, wow, this dude could be 8 for 25 shooting. Game on the line, he's taking the shot. Well, it's because he's pushed past that fear of failure. That is just feedback, as you're saying. I totally agree. And I think you can really I have it on signage. You can hear it from the players. I say it every day. Adversity is an opportunity. My vision was always like, the second something bad happens, how can I fix it? And all I'm doing is replicating stuff that I've done in my life experience, but recognizing that it's pervasive everywhere. And so then it's that is what really guys resonate with, because there's, just like life, there's a ton of failure in football.
How do you walk that line, Mike, relative to them feeling and recognizing the power in failure at some level, that it's feedback, that it's about how quickly we recover, and as a player, them feeling safe relative to their role?
It. I don't think there's safe in terms of job security, or what do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because a lot of guys, I mean, you drop X number of passes in a row and you might not be out there anymore. But yet coaches telling me get after it, adversity, you just recover fast, etc. Get me inside of the way you coach for that, right? Because I think the leaders would say it's okay, we have an environment and a culture where failure is welcome and we want to recover fast from those moments. And that they're safe in feeling that they can believe that from the leader, that they can, in fact, go for something that's maybe a bit of a stretch for them. If they don't get it done, it's okay. We're not.
No, it's the caveat is that you learn from the mistake. So, like, inherent in it, if you drop a ball, like I'm not talking the results. I'm talking about what things that I can help you from a technique perspective, and then identify and making them feel safe in that your job is to correct that thing that you just did and learn from it. Now, if you don't learn from it,
Right.
because that's what they all know that I'm focused on. So I don't.
Right. Sure.
I'm good with that mistake unless it's repeated. And that's where the line is crossed. There's an inherent expectation of development to a degree.
Right.
Right. And,
Sure.
no one's entitled to anything. And the Miami Dolphins fan base deserves to have the very best players and the very best team. They deserve the best coaching. and your job is to be the best version of yourself. And if that doesn't mean you're that person for that role, then so be it. I think it's a safe environment because I believe the only way to be the best version of yourself is to be yourself. But it's also, there's an urgency created within it because everybody knows that I'm going to do the best thing for the organization. I'm going to do my job to the
Right.
best of the ability.
Sure.
And every player is counting, like the running backs are counting on me to find and select the best blockers for them, right? So I have to,
Sure.
that's everywhere. We can't, if there's
Right. Sure.
a better defensive coach than the one they have, I have to be the one that has to make that's my role. And if there's better players, then that is what it is. I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with
Yeah.
making sure that you're not living in regret.
Yeah. Yeah. Tua, he's probably one of the most scrutinized guys in the league, right? What do you
Who's that?
expect
I'm
from
sorry?
him this year? Tua, your quarterback.
Oh, Tua.
You know
Yeah,
that,
no,
you know
the
that guy. Yeah, that guy.
the audio. So Tua, I expect.
I'm just jam. I'm kidding.
I'm really, really excited for him. It wasn't too
Yeah.
long ago where people were calling him a bust.
Yeah, no, I know your story around it's
And
incredible.
that means that perspective is fresh for him. And all of this, the journey is not even nearly complete for that. And that's the coolest thing is he is so wise relative to what he was a couple years ago because of all the stuff that he's gone through. It's I'm excited because I think he's over a year he's been empowered to be his best self, and he's been recognized why he deserves the opportunity that he has, been focused on the right stuff, and has been coached very well by the coaching staff that have been fortunate enough to hire and work with me. So I don't put a ceiling on what he's able to perform because he ends up doing little things that surprise me every day. That doesn't mean
Wow.
he's going to be perfect. This game's too hard. But
Right.
he's going to build on what people didn't think he could do last year, and I'm happy for him because the journey isn't for himself; it's for his family, and it's a new family, and it's something that's really, really cool on a lot of levels. So I'm excited for him to enter into the next stage.
Yeah, I bet. What was your biggest, when you think about last year as a first year head coach, where do you think you grew the most?
I think I would say that from this year to last, understanding the scope with which my responsibility lies, understanding how many people are depending on me to be my best self, and really knowing that all that means is just put my best foot forward every day.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean it's going to be void of mistakes, but
sure.
I know that I feel very comfortable, and there's a sense of relief that I truly think that I'm the best person to be doing this because there's deep down, like, I do know there's only 32. And it is, I mean, it's a very fortunate lifestyle relative to anything that I even sniffed growing up. And I don't know, you don't, sometimes you're like, how did I get so lucky? Well, I do know that I can, um, to the best of my ability, uh, really handle tough times, um, streamline people's thought processes and provide an avenue for guys to be the best versions of themselves. I truly believe that. So um, it
That's
feels,
awesome. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So you're in a good spot. I mean, I mean, from what you learned last season and now. So we end with rapid fire, Coach.
Oh,
I know you got to hop. It's kind of a busy time.
rapid fire?
It's kind of a busy time for you right now. So yeah, you ready?
Well, all right, I'm ready. Let's go.
You ready? All right, let's go. What's your game day routine?
To drive to the stadium, prepare for all situations that I'm gonna call. I stop at a Starbucks on the way, and I get a frappuccino, the venti. Oh yeah, there's a
Venti,
lot
the
of
big one?
calories, a lot of, um,
Yeah.
and then I go to the stadium, prepare, um, listen to music, and get my call sheet ready to call plays. It's pretty boring.
Ready to go. I love it. What? What's one thing on your bucket list?
Europe.
One thing people would be surprised to know about you.
Um, I don't know. People know a lot about me these days, and I kind of just put it all out there. Um, hmm, uh, oh, I didn't eat, on my own, I didn't eat vegetables until I was in college, and that was just salad.
Wow. Is that still the case?
I dabble, but I don't eat many
Throw
vegetables.
a couple. So
I never finish, like if I have this is a can of whatever, I never finish soft drinks. They're
yeah.
always this full, and I stop drinking them because I can't do room temperature liquids. There's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Nah.
Yeah, no room temperature liquids.
Yeah.
I'm connected with you on that one. So you're really well known for your style, right? I mean, this is common. I mean, your style.
Is this
we
known
talk
as a
about
good
it.
style? I hope.
Yeah, no, I mean your style as a coach, right?
Oh,
Like your
yeah.
style. You know what I'm saying? Like the who on your team would you trust to
Ooh.
pick out your game day outfit? Who would you trust to do that?
Myself. Um, I don't know. Okay. Who's this? It would have to be the person that has the most put together swag, and no one. I just don't see anyone.
You can't.
No,
You can't
okay.
think of anybody.
Can it be any team? There's a guy. Somebody came to mind. Emmanuel Sanders. Okay,
All
I could outsource
Okay.
Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
He was one of the best dressed guys
Right.
that I was ever around. And really, out of all, he might be the top of the list and only the best, right? Yes.
You trust him. What's your favorite book you've ever read?
Talent is overrated.
I
You
love
read
that
it?
book too. Totally. Totally.
Outstanding.
Talent is.
It's a great one.
Yeah, talent is overrated.
Right.
I couldn't agree with it more. I mean, people think it's about talent. It's not. It's about drive. It's about resilience. It's about.
I say
discipline. It's
deliberate
about
practice
everything.
all the time, and
All
that's
right,
where I got it from.
Love it. Love it. So the show's called Game Changers. One last question: what game changer, or who is a game changer who inspires you, and why?
Mike Shanahan is a game changer and inspired me because my first year in coaching, I spent an entire year on a team that I watched him convince all of us and I was 100% all in that we were a Super Bowl caliber team. 5 years down the road, as a seasoned coach that had more knowledge about the game, looking back at those individual pieces, I realized that it was the sum of the parts that, like, realistically, I think there was like one Pro Bowler on the entire team. And wow, in the moment, did we believe that we were the team that should win the Super Bowl, and it got us all the way to the AFC Championship game.
Wow.
Game changer all the way. Again, all of this stuff that's happened in my career is 100% a result of a lot of other people as well. And like one of them was Mike Shanahan. It started with my mom, but he was professionally one of the biggest influences I ever had.
Yeah. That's awesome. Hey, thanks for so much time. It's such a busy time, and wishing you the best this season. Thanks
It was
for
a
coming on.
pleasure.